What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I am joined with Jasmine Laine from the show Over Opinionated. She's picking up speed, folks. She's getting big. She's out there in Canada to our stepsister country is what I like to call it. And Jasmine, thank you so much for joining me. You have a great show going on right now. You're really rising to the top, baby. So how are you?
I am just peachy, and thank you so much for all of that. It is very difficult to do anything in this space in Canada. We have a lot of media censorship laws and priorities over Canadian content, and specifically things that the government pushes out. And to the extent too that I don't even think a lot of Canadians are aware of just how dominant our government policies control YouTube and Meta and Google and everything. So
How are
the
you getting
fact that
by? I mean, are you self-censoring? Are you having to do what I did like during the purge and just kind of watch your P's and Q's, bob and
You
weave?
know, I don't think I self-censor as much anymore, but certainly you do a little bit. But I would say overall, I just kind of reached a point where I was like, I don't actually care anymore, and I'm just going to put this out there, and hopefully it doesn't get taken down, and let's just see what happens. And it's been a good response overall. X has been a wonderful platform, though our government has no control over that one. So thank you,
Wow. Yeah,
Mr. Musk.
I've been to Canada and I'll say like it's a different kind of place. I was raised on the border. But I've gone to I had some girlfriends up in Canada. I went to go visit Canada a little bit. It was a different kind of place. I remember uh I felt like Big Brother there was like in full effect, if that makes sense. And this was like 10
Mhm.
years ago. Or maybe actually no, that was longer. It was probably 15 years ago. But I felt like it's just a different vibe, man. It's even different than Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Canada is even a number like over a decade ago, it was very different than how it is now. I think that we've always really prioritized like kindness and peace and integration and all of those things for decades, but it wasn't really until the election of our last prime or our current prime minister Justin Trudeau about nine and a half years ago now that things really dramatically shifted to a point where it's bizarre for me to reflect and think, whoa, like something really dark happened, and it happened very quickly. And people were very much, I think, too, because of the government's regulation with all media, everything at all that gets published. And like I said, ranging from like YouTube to Netflix, even there, it really is an echo chamber of so many of the same voices. And I don't think that people, like I said, fully recognize just how much of an impact the government does have in portraying a narrative and making sure that that narrative gets heard. Which has just been, it's been so wild and so disappointing to see some of the comments that I get on things and just how radicalized so many of our citizens have become. And I don't blame them for it, because what if they turn on the TV and watch the news? What do they hear? They hear that same messaging. If they go on social media, they hear that same messaging. Like our government over the last 5 years has spent well over $1 million on social media influencers to specifically condemn certain things as being racist and
Push out a narrative.
yeah, like, and to name call and really divide. And so to me, I'm like, well, I don't blame people for feeling the way that they did. And our Google algorithms are also different in Canada than they are anywhere else. Like, it's wild. If you search certain things, you will almost always have the first page of your Google, and let's be honest, who actually clicks to go to the second page? Almost nobody.
Right.
But
Right.
your
Yeah, it's
first
true.
page will always be something that just reinforces that narrative. I've done this test with friends of mine who are more liberal too, where I will search something, and what they get as the responses on their phone compared to mine, because I'm more actively I'm looking for those other leads. It is so different, and it's just unfathomable that that is even the reality. And it also makes you wonder, like, why? What is it that is so bad that this needs to even happen in the first place?
Before we go further, I want to get your thoughts on the hockey game with the USA Canada game, the booing, the whole thing. But first, let me knock out this commercial. All right, folks, Chuck Norris, morning kick. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and it was he's in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over his grandkids. And I wonder what else. He did this just by making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better, folks. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day long. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Nino or by clicking on the link below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Nino. Click on the link in the description box below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it really is. Just a reminder, folks, Chuck Norris is a whopping 84. I think I've been saying that for the last 2 years. He's 84. He's got to be like 86 now. But he's 84 years old, and he has more energy than me. I have to say that as well also. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking on the link below and get started with Chuck. The morning defense, folks. Chuck defense, that's what it is, morning kick. All right, so what's your thoughts on this whole hockey game that went down, man? I mean, America beat that ass.
Yeah, we don't even
but,
have.
I mean, I understand why you all are
hockey.
upset. I get why you're all upset, the tariffs and all that, but I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, overall, I am so vehemently opposed to anybody booing a national anthem. And I think, again, it goes to show how much the narrative has been pushed on Canadians. And it's really fascinating as well, being in this space. I watch a ton of American news. And the way that they are discussing things is polar opposite to how Canadian outlets are discussing it. So again, it's like, it's no wonder why people feel the way that they feel. And it's just this very disjointed anger and frustration. Like, why is it that in America, you know, our government has said, oh yeah, we're going to put on like 25% counter tariffs, dollar for dollar counter tariffs. You don't hear anybody in the US freaking out about that. Why? Because your economy is much more sustainable than ours is. Ours used to be sustainable like yours. We typically are just barely below you guys, occasionally above you guys. But over the last 9 years, we're like almost 50% below you now.
Justin Trudeau.
Exactly. And so it's like, the reason why these tariffs are such a big deal is because our economy has been driven to the ground, and we have all these crazy climate initiatives and these crazy taxes. Like, people can barely even afford to survive here. Our rates of homelessness, it's officially now, it's about 25% of the entire population of this country are homeless.
Your all's drug problem is it could be worse than America's. I mean, I've seen, I think in Vancouver, you have spots there that are like Skid Row, that everyone's just strung out and drugged out, and there's overdoses all the time.
Yep.
I mean, I've watched documentaries on this. It's bad in Canada.
Well, it doesn't help that the government is also, you know, the largest drug dealer in the country, because they actually make drugs and they give them out to users for free, who oftentimes will then go and sell them.
That you guys are like supplying them with needles and all syringes and all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So you're enabling them.
100%. But for us, it's compassion. Oh, we're so compassionate. Oh, it's the best thing to do.
Well, it's you guys are like, well, we want to make sure they're doing it the clean way, the right way. They're not spreading diseases by sharing needles so they can get clean needles, correct?
Yeah. But it's not even just that. We have safe supply and safe consumption. That isn't across the country, though. So Vancouver, British Columbia is one of the worst places for all of this. It was almost like a little experimental project. And it's just been terrible. And so there is actually like government provided narcotics for people to take on top of free needles, all of that stuff. And it's horrifying. It is so horrifying what it's done. And, you know, they'll brag about the numbers. Oh, well, our overdose deaths have gone down. And it's like, okay, great. They've gone down because people are consuming now in a place where there's somebody with Narcan on them who can resuscitate them. And oftentimes when they get resuscitated, they're incredibly angry at the person who did it because they killed their high by injecting them with Narcan. But you also have the percentage of people who are using now has just skyrocketed because it's available. It's there.
So are the drugs are really pouring through, I mean, in America, coming through Mexico, obviously South America. Are they coming, what are the main areas that are coming through in Canada? Are they coming through America into Canada? Or are they coming what other methods are they getting there?
China would be the biggest one. We have, if I'm not mistaken, it's only about 1% of our containers that get checked by our border security. And
Wow.
so because of that, there's a lot of these substances, and it's the precursor substances that are legal in some, what am I trying to say here? They're legal to purchase depending on what your profession is. So a lot of those precursors you can buy from China, and they'll come in. So that's people doing it the legal way, or you can do it the illegal way, where you just go and you either buy the full stock or you buy the precursors and then you go and bust them. Canada very recently had, it was one of the largest drug labs that was busted like in the world, just happened, and this was in British Columbia, if I'm not mistaken. So I would say China is probably the absolute biggest threat for that. And then of course it is also manufactured here, and they manufacture at rates that you would kill the entire Canadian population 4 times over before you could distribute to the entire Canadian population. So
I remember
obviously
I
those are being trafficked.
I remember when I went to Canada, I remember I was raised here on the border of El Paso, Ciudad Juarez, right? So I grew up both sides on Mexico and in America, but I remember like it's a joke. Like the southern border is a joke, but when I went to Canada, I was like, damn, and they took me out, they frisked me, they searched me. I mean, everything. I was like, damn, bent over and coughed. No, just kidding. But I mean, I remember there, I was like, man, this is like to me, I felt like in violated. But in this other, so has that changed? Has the border gotten more lenient? I mean, are they just kind of lackadaisical now, or what are they like now? Because that was like 15 years ago. I remember that
Mhm.
I felt severely violated every time I crossed.
I would say coming into Canada, it depends on how you're doing it. If you're doing a land border, oftentimes that can be a little bit more intense. It depends though. But overall, we have severely cut funding to our border services. And that was something as well. It's not all the Liberals' fault there. There was some cuts that were made under the Conservative government, but then the Liberal government came in and they just cut it 10 times more. And then also too, it's a lot of our policy and our laws and regulations. That stuff is really the bad thing. Like, as an example, in British Columbia, an article just came out that no longer can stores release the footage of people who shoplift because it's a violation of their privacy. So
What?
that's the kind of liberal ideology that our country has really been changed to, is things like that, where you aren't allowed to be as intense, and more than anything, there's just not
You're
enough money.
protecting the criminals,
Yeah, you are
which
100%.
is giving them an
Absolutely.
incentive to do more.
And that's why they keep doing more. Yep, absolutely. And that's, we have catch and release bail policies, 1 day bail. So even there's people who have been released from horrific offenses against children, even, and they get let out on bail and they don't have a court date for 4 years. And they're just walking free the entire time. So it's just been a severe breakdown of law enforcement.
So what they've accomplished with Canada is what they were trying to accomplish with America, with Biden and Harris and the whole thing, the whole globalist agenda. You guys are pretty much a captured operation.
Well, and then we also have our liberal leadership race happening right now. Justin Trudeau decided to call or resign, and call for a party leadership race to happen. And Mark Carney is one of the top guys in there. And Mark Carney is WEF through and through. And he's already been advising our government for years. He has very strong ties to China. I honestly think I'm at a point where, I tried my darndest, especially in the beginning of pursuing this line of work, where I was very aware of conspiracies. I was very aware of things that seem really shocking, but might not actually be true. And I've come to this point now where I can't confidently say that that's not true and that's a conspiracy. In fact, it's the opposite. The more research I do, the more testimony I hear, and again, all these things that do not make it on front page news in Canada. The more that I look into this stuff, it's so abundantly clear that there's something really evil happening in this country, and
Yeah, and the
we are
deeper
so
you go down the
screwed.
rabbit hole, the deeper it goes. I mean, and then it turns into a maze, and you get lost down there. A lot of people get black
Mhm.
pilled, and they can't recover from that. They just see everything in this bleak dystopian perspective. But
Mhm.
it goes deeper and deeper, man. It's just never ends. It
Yeah.
never ends, and you just start
Mhm.
to see the corruption on how deep the corruption really is. How does Canada feel? What's the vibe like in Canada right now? Like, what's the climate like there?
It depends who you ask. Like I said, there's a lot of people who are very indoctrinated, very, very much so. And they're very much, screw the orange man bad from,
They're
from the
still like that.
USA. Oh yeah. Even more so after the tariffs, even more so. So there's a lot of that and a lot of people who reiterate and regurgitate talking points that have been disproven or that aren't factual about the United States. That's one thing that's really unfortunate is all of this Trump tariff situation. I understand why it's happening, of course. I don't know that I agree with every single point made, but I understand it. Like that was something where in the very beginning, a lot of people on the conservative side were thinking, oh, thank goodness this is happening. This is really going to help us get rid of this government finally. But the media has really spun it in a way that has even turned some conservatives towards the Liberal Party, where it's like Canada first, like, yeah, we're going to, and it's like, we're not winning this for one. Like, you think Canada has a shot? We don't have a country in a few years if that's the case.
So how would Trump absorb Canada as the 51st state? How do you guys even feel about that rhetoric or that talk? How do you guys? How do I would imagine as a whole, you guys like what you just said. I would imagine people are pretty upset about it. I mean, we saw
Yeah.
the booing at the hockey game. Not many people think like you in Canada, I would imagine. So do you think it's a possibility? Could it happen?
Well, that's a loaded question. Do I think could it happen? Maybe. I think that would be really tough to actually do. Keep in mind, we are under the king still, so that would be something. I don't know exactly all the details about that. We are a Commonwealth country. So who knows? But in terms of can it happen, should it happen? I'm at an interesting point where, don't get me wrong, I love my country. We have like some of the most beautiful land in the world. But also my country is not what it used to be. And I get to a point sometimes where it's like, okay, so here's what's going to happen. Let's say the US invades. That will never happen. At least I don't think it would. But let's say that's the rhetoric going around. Like, our government has banned law-abiding hunters from having their rifles and everything too. Like, we don't what are we doing to defend ourselves? Nothing. Okay, great. So what else do
We
we
could just
have?
walk right in.
Well, yeah, you could, and what we'd probably say, oh, hi, hey there, bud. um but so, like, it's like everything about this has really just signaled how weak our country is, which a lot of people would be mad at me for saying, but facts are facts, buddy. Like, we do not have a fighting ground here at all. And it's not because of who we are as a nation in its entirety. It is 100% at the feet of our federal government, who has blocked pipelines. They have blocked industry. They have created all of these new environmental taxes. There was a project to get some of our oil out over to like Asia, that general area. And it was first launched 11 years ago. And they still hadn't even put a single shovel in the ground because they're going through the bureaucratic process and environmental checks to get everything approved. So they canceled it. It was an $11 billion project. And so they canceled it after 11 years of nothing. And I bet you anything that project's going to appear in the US. And things like that are unnecessary. And it's 100% at the feet of our government that has put us in this weakened state.
I would have never imagined that Mexico would cooperate with Trump. Okay, I would have never imagined that. So, like, I knew Claudia Scheinbaum was a pawn. I knew she was placed in there by the globalist cartels, whatever. And to watch what's happening right now on the border is shocking to me. To see that they're sending up their military, although it's like the bank robbers watching over the bank. But to see that they're playing ball, and then the Mexican Senate has just approved the entry of U.S. Special Forces to take on the cartels, which blows my mind. Okay, I can't believe what I'm watching here. But U.S. Special Forces landing in Mexico to train Marine infantry. So this is happening right now. So if this could happen in Mexico, listen, I thought it was a better shot in Canada. For it to be happening in Mexico, I think anything's possible. Okay. I'm just saying, I have a feeling we're cleaning out the deep state in America first.
Yeah.
And then I got a feeling the next step is Mexico, Canada, and making our neighbors cooperate in some way, shape, or form. If you know what I mean. I think I don't see why. Um, I'm in the firm belief, with all the, for the last 5 years, especially, that what I've been watching is an operation. And there's no way Trump could have been able to do what he has done without an operation happening in the background. Looking at Mayor Eric Adams play ball now, looking at Kathy Hochul have charges against her, as well as 𝗬𝗧cie 𝗂𝘁𝗻𝗄, looking at Pam Bondi take over the DOJ. I mean, to me, there was an operation beforehand. There's something bigger behind Trump. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. And I also think too, I'm curious on your take on this too. I have a very hard time, and I could be wrong, I don't know, but I have a very hard time believing that all of this stuff coming at us from you is solely due to, we have this, there's a deficit with Canada. Meanwhile, that's not 100% factual. We sell our oil to you for next to nothing, and then the US resells it. They make billions, hundreds of billions of dollars off of it annually. But I don't think it has to do with that. I think it has a lot more to do with getting rid of the World Economic Forum in Canada.
Correct.
And Justin Trudeau and every single person who is the leader of the World Economic Forum, he did an interview where he was bragging about how many people from specifically Justin Trudeau's cabinet in Canada are a part of their organization. And whereas the Conservative Party of Canada, there's a couple of candidates who once upon a time, 10 years ago, maybe were nominated for an award or something on it. But there's nobody, as far as records show, that is involved with that organization. It's been publicly condemned by the Conservatives, as well as it should be. It's insane. And so I really think it has a lot more to do with that. And then also because of that and the amount of corruption in Canada, between China, this is well documented of China meddling inside of some of our elections. Even Mark Carney, who I had mentioned earlier as well, there was a massive bot attack that took place coming out of China against Mark Carney's opponents. And somebody really stupid to not be able to put those pieces together. Why would China be wanting to discredit all of the people who are going against the guy from the World Economic Forum who has $1 trillion business? Like, why would that? Like, the whole thing, it's right in front of your face, but so many people think it's a conspiracy, so they don't do the research into it. And again, nobody, like Canadian media, does not talk about these things. And people
of course not. You guys, that's a captured operation. America's media is captured.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, MSNBC.
I think the major problem for both of us here, and I just had Big Foreman Mike on, who did the under Steve Bannon, he did the We Build the Wall stuff all down here in El Paso, Sunland Park, New Mexico. And he was talking about how China has set up shop all over South America and in Mexico. It's a serious threat, and that's another reason why we're taking back the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
But Canada, man, you guys are infested with China.
Yeah. We have Chinese banks. What?
Right. That's right.
Why do we have Chinese banks?
Yeah. So it seems to me like in order to do this operation, let's say properly, there's phases here. There has to be phases. So the first phase would have to be clean up America, which we're doing. I've always talked about the boomerang. I said, listen, once Trump gets in there and he gets the high ground, the boomerang's coming. And it already looks like we're working our way into Mexico. I do expect, I'm serious when I say this. Don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, just like Gulf of America, you guys become the 51st state. I'm not kidding. I can see this happen because I never would have believed, never in a million years, that we were going to be sending special forces to train the military, which is cartel, how to take themselves out. Okay? It doesn't happen. We're teaching them how to take themselves out. It does not happen. I'm on the border. I've lived here on both sides my entire life. I'm in shock. I'm in shock.
Do you
So
think that is actually what the game plan is, or do you think that that is a very intense threat in order to get Canada to figure itself out?
I think it's a threat to get Canada to figure itself out.
Mhm,
I think he's doing with you guys what happened the last 4 years with Biden. It's
mhm.
kind of like red pilling the public. Like, listen, it's probably best you come with us. Look at your own take a look in the mirror.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's what's
See,
gonna happen for you guys. That's what
the
I
the
think is gonna
thing
happen.
the thing about it, and I agree, yeah, I would say I mostly agree with you. The thing about it that's really unfortunate though is the conservatives in Canada had such a good lead, and we're in an election year. Hopefully there are things they can do to delay the election by a year, but I don't think that would be in their best interest to do, so who knows. But the conservatives were in such a massive lead, and then all of this Trump information came out, and the Liberal Party decided we're going to really double down on all of this. And it's been incredible to see how well that propaganda has worked. And I think it went from a place of, well, we just need to salvage our party, because they were polling at a point where they actually wouldn't have even had enough seats to be a party anymore. That's how much the conservatives were winning. And they went from a point of saying, we're just going to try to salvage our party, we'll get Justin Trudeau to step down, whatever, to now with all of the rhetoric that's going around and having so much of the mainstream media and just citizens who, it's unreal how much Canadians, so many of them, we had the trucker convoy that took place, and the amount of, oh no, they're all bad. They're all bad for raising their Canadian flag, to 2-3 years later saying, we're going to raise our Canadian flag. We love being patriots. And I'm like, what? Like, you were calling everybody a Nazi a few years ago for having a Canadian flag outside of their house. Like, we're so malleable. So many people are. Um, and I just worry now that the support, like, we were so close, and now it's like, oh my god, what if the Liberals actually do win again? I don't even know. What I think at that point, you're probably going to have a lot of people in the country begging Donald Trump to create some sort of a
That's what's gonna happen.
package.
Yes, that's what. So what I think what happened with us with Biden the last 4 years is you guys are getting ready to go into that, and I think what happened with us, the exposing and the red killing for the last 4 years is going to happen to Canada, and soon
Mhm.
you'll be begging to be part of the United States, and Trump will just keep putting it out there. I think, you should become part of the 50. You should become part of America, the 51st state, and he's going to just dangle that carrot until finally you guys say, "Let's go." And
Yeah.
I think that's the direction this goes.
I think there's a lot of people that would be open to that. But then there's also a lot of people who are vehemently against it. But like I said before, and sorry if this
Well,
gets me
that's
totally
the same way it was here when Biden
true.
got in. It was the
Yeah, that's
same
true.
thing, and now look how it just turned.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. I just feel like I just this country is so unstable. And that part scares me, because it's so unpredictable how people are going to shift given whatever the rhetoric may be. But Donald Trump has made some really excellent points in that, if you come here, like Canadians, the average Canadian citizen, after you pay your taxes and then whatever your contributions are, and many of those contributions are mandatory and they're taken off your paycheck automatically. Most people are about 57% on average. 50 to 57% is of your income every single time you get paid goes to the government. And what do we have to show for it? There's people who die in waiting rooms. Everybody likes to brag about our healthcare system. Our healthcare system was really great for a lot of years, but look at it now. It's really
Yeah,
bad. It's
it's
really, really,
terrible.
like, my sister-in-law, she had a spinal fluid leak. She had a surgery and she had a spinal fluid leak shortly after, and they didn't have any room to put her in. This happened about a month ago. And so she was in the hallway of the hospital, and at about 2 a.m., and again, she can't move because she has a spinal injury. So she can't move anything. And it was about 2 a.m. or so, and she was texting our family group chat, and she was kind of freaking out because there were 3 people that appeared to be having some sort of a drug-induced psychosis or something that were in the hallway with her. It's like a scene out of The
I bet
Crazies.
you I would bet there's so many people from off the street that just flood into
Oh yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
hospitals that need care.
Oh, it's cold
Oh,
outside.
that must be
Yeah,
a
of course.
nightmare.
And so she was saying, though, it was just one of the craziest things to me to have my sister-in-law with a really serious injury, but there wasn't any room to get her in. She couldn't get a surgery for like another 6 days or something. She's totally like almost paralyzed from the waist down. Texting us at 2 a.m, like so scared because some of these people were like screaming. And then, there was one man in particular who kept opening up the curtain to where her bed was. And she doesn't know who this guy is. She can't move. There's no hospital staff around her at this period of time. They're sitting at their desks and screaming, and all that crazy stuff is just every day for them. And she was like trying to ask us where she should hide her purse in case they stole her purse while she was sleeping, because there's these 3 strangers who are tweaking out around her. And that's not the story everywhere in Canada, but stories like that happen frequently
was
enough.
her family? I mean, did she have any family around her there? I mean,
No, it was just her, because there are no rooms. So for family, it's like, okay, well, I'll stay here. You're in the nurse's care, whatever. Okay, I'll go home. Keep us on speed dial, and so everybody leaves, and you go back in, and
I
that's
didn't
what
really
it
think
is.
about that. That would be a massive problem. The drug problem in Canada must be just the hospitals must just be overflowing. So when someone like
The amount of
needs something like a
stabbings and
surgery,
stuff. Yeah, there's been a lot of hospital staff who have been attacked a lot. It's been really, really horrific, and it absolutely does flood everything. And hospital staff has been so underfunded, and again pushed out. Like we have just the craziest policies. There's so many people who have immigrated here who are doctors and nurses in other countries, but they can't be a doctor or nurse here because you have to go and redo school again, which is insane. So that's something our Conservative Party is pushing to remove, so that we can actually have people working here again.
I haven't thought about this, but my parents are elderly, so they've been in ICU the last year, like about every 3 weeks, and I was just in ICU with my dad, and I remember it was December, and I haven't been in there since because he got out, but it was just flooded with immigrants, man, and I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself, and this is just, this should not be the way it is, man. We're paying our tax dollars. The hospital's very poor. The beds suck. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everything. They have no room for families, just like you said. But I'm wondering now, now with like everything that's happening, I'm I'm curious on how the hospitals look now because the waiting rooms were packed, and it was all from people from Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of that too. Not people from Mexico, but
No, I'm just saying.
but
I wonder now with everything that's happening,
if it's still the
what
same.
it looks like now with the crackdown. Because I have friends here that own businesses. Like, dude, we can't get anyone to come into work. They're scared.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
like, wow, well, but I mean, and they all. I mean, it's going to be interesting how this shakes down. But Jasmine, I appreciate you coming on. Her channel, folks, is Over Opinionated on you. You're on still on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
How?
I've made it work somehow.
Wow. And so, yeah, because it follows a whole different algorithm in Canada, the whole thing. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that, again, people don't know how serious it is, but it's unreal to be a conservative voice and to have the fast growing audience that I've had is just I never in a million years would have suspected that could have happened.
Did you set out to do this, or were you just kind of you just hit a viral? Because what happened with me was I just hit a viral video one day and I just stayed
Mhm.
on top of it, and this grew on this by itself. But with you, how did it happen for you? How did you get into this?
Well, I worked as a broadcaster for 11 years in mainstream media.
Ooh.
And so that there was plenty of times where I would feel really frustrated because we just never talked about anything beyond surface level. And there were also very frequently times where it's like you can't talk about that. And I would get in trouble sometimes. But I've always been very interested in politics since I was quite young. Like 13 was when I first really started to get interested in politics. And I obviously have the gift of gab. So, I worked my way into being a broadcaster, and I loved my career when I did it. And then I think truthfully, this is a sad story, but my partner, we were together for 10 years and he took his life.
Oh
And
man.
so that was certainly him and I at the time that he did pass away. We had actually like mutually agreed, like, hey, we're going to take a step back from each other. Like, this is too big for us to fight together. It's tearing me down. It's tearing you down. So I moved
What
out.
was
I
too big to
moved
fight?
just the I don't know how else to explain. Just like the evils, the weight on his shoulders was just, it was too much for us,
He
and it
was
was.
also an anchor, or he was also in broadcasting, or what?
No, no, he was just a regular guy. I'm just talking about like his depression and stuff though.
Oh, okay,
Like,
I got you. I got you.
and so that was just, it was really hard. And so I ended up moving out. I moved a block away. So we were still very close. And then sure enough, a few months later, he took his life. So
Wow.
that situation for me was the catalyst of, I'm no longer listening to what my head is telling me to do and to be smart and be careful and be kind and compassionate. I'm like, I don't care at all about any of that. I'm following my heart rate here. And my heart is telling me nobody's talking about this stuff. And that's another big thing too, is in Canada, rates for men under 30 have skyrocketed. They're higher than the amount of women who pass away each year from breast cancer. And I think a lot of that has to do with just this crazy woke ideology and the fact that people don't make money and you can't get ahead in this country anymore. And so that was kind
I
of
think this
what
is all done by
initially.
design, man.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I think so
Yeah,
too.
this is all
But
done by
yeah, after
design.
that I was like, screw this. I'm done. I'm talking. I'm talking now. Like, and I did
So how
that. I
long have
ended
you
up
had your
losing.
channel?
I think it's been close to 10 months now.
Beautiful. You're kicking ass.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
folks, get to her channel, Jasmine Laine, over opinionated. Subscribe. I'll put it down there in the link below, and get you some more followers because you deserve it. I'm sorry about your ex boyfriend.
Hey, I got myself a pretty beautiful guardian angel now, so I can't complain
Yeah,
too much.
man. Sorry to hear that. All right, Jasmine. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.